Is a coordinator.
Let's start. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So this is a live session for two of our students who are on PSW. They completed their degrees. One of them completed their degree from one of the top universities in the UK. His name is David from Royal Holloway University in MSc in cybersecurity, right? And he has been studying our tracks, basically our compliance track, our DevOps and all these things, like for the past, I would say, 6 to 9 months, something like that. As soon as he completed his degree, he has his PSW and he's now going through the interview process. So he passed his interview, the first interview. Then I prepared him some time ago. Like that was like 2 weeks ago, Dave. Like David, when was it?
It was 1 week ago.
1 week ago. So he passed his first interview. Now I'm assuming this is the final interview, right?
Yes, this is the final one.
This is the final interview where the group head and the CISO, which is like the CISO equivalent over there, and all these people are sitting there and they are bringing you in so that you can present them the findings of what it is going to be. Now, this position that Dave is going for is ideal for anyone who comes from the background of basically engineering. So if you're an engineer, like electrical engineer or mechanical engineer or any other discipline, this is an ideal job for you, working in the OT sector, the operational technology, IT OT, which is the SCADA industry. This is an electrical power grid, one of the biggest ones in the UK. They earn billions of pounds, British pound, on an annual basis, and they're doing it in a very green fashion, so on and so forth. So it's a prize company in UK. As we said, that passing your your degree will only allow you to be able to get the PSW, postgraduate work permit. But when it comes to going for the job, you can't do that unless and until you have the resume, the training, the experience, everything mentioned nicely, neatly, as per the job requirements. So David has a very unique case. He comes from the background in finance, right, David? You were an accountant or working in the finance department, right?
Yes, Faisal.
So he used to work in the finance department, and that was long ago. But then he made a transition. He applied for his student visa, and then he went on. And when he moved on to UK, he came to Royal Holloway University. By studying just our diploma at that time, which was not even accredited at that time, he got an admission in one of the prestigious universities, I would say, in cybersecurity, Royal Holloway University. So he went there. After completing his degree, as like all of the students who are applying for basically jobs, he was there as well. But, in UK, you cannot secure a job if you do not have the experience. So experience counts, right? This is the most important thing. What is important is basically that you need to study a course that can teach you the job description, that can provide you the internship, that can prepare your resume and prepare you for the interview. And that's exactly what we do. So that's why we are here today, and we'll be going through some of these things. So this whole session is going to be in English. The reason is that they're going for an interview in England. So obviously we have to do that in English. Now, you pass your first interview. The company name is not mentioned here, right? Do I have your permission to show the screen just so that we can go through the scenario? Or because nothing is mentioned as name of the company?
Yes, Faisal. I think that's a blank document.
Right. It's a very generic document. They have given you a very, very generic document, right?
Yes, but Faisal, don't open the Excel one.
No, I'm not going to open the Excel one, because the Excel one has a lot of sensitive information. So I'm not going to do that. But what I'm saying is just like we're going to keep it as discreet as possible, so that, because you have to go for the final interview. Once you have passed your interview and everything and you secured the job, then obviously, you can share your own testimonial and everything, right? Now, keep this
Yes,
in
of
mind for
course.
everyone who has their PSW in UK. You will not be able to secure a job in UK unless and until you study a course which makes you go through all the key things. And if you're not doing that, then it will be extremely impossible for you to find a job, right? And for finding a job, one of the core things that we recommend is basically, just give me 1 minute. So one of the things that you have to understand is, just like, if you don't have the skill set, if you don't have the skills, you will never be successful in UK. And what we do at Anafe is we give you the skills, because the skills, the experience, and everything, right? So this is one of the things that I would like to show you, right? Can you allow me, Yusuf, the other person, to have access as well, please? I don't have access over there. Can you do that, please, Yusuf? Please be available here, Yusuf, because I need you to give me access and a couple of other things as well. I still don't have the access on the other machine, which is name is Abdullah and Hadi. Okay, let me see if I can give it myself. Right? I can't. Can you make me the host of the meeting, please, if you can? Yusuf, are you there? Can you please make me the complete host of the meeting as well? Can someone please contact Yusuf if he's available and he's listening, so that he can give me complete access?
I have messaged him, Faisal.
He's free. Can you please make me the complete admin so that I can see and I can give access to myself, because the other machine doesn't have the access, please? Okay. I'm going to just give them the access I need, right? So we're going to go through some of these things, right? We just want to make sure that, David, that, we cover, right? So for all of these students who are residing on PSW, degree is as good as getting you the PSW. That's it. After that, you have to study. It's an irony that the universities are not preparing you. What we do is, we prepare you from ground up. So this is the track, DevOps, SysOps, AI advancement track. This enables you with all the necessary knowledge and the experience and the resume and the internship to enable you to be able to work in basically in all the top companies in the UK, right? But obviously, if you keep on applying and you keep on sending hundreds and thousands of resume on a weekly basis, even, it wouldn't make any difference, because you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge, you don't know how to pass the interviews. And this is what we are doing right now. This is what we do with all of our students, right? So I'm going to go back. This is the document that was sent to David. It says, after passing the first round of the interview, now we're going for the second round preparation. This is the final round preparation. What we do is, when we prepare anyone, they have to go through our courses, part of the internship program. But then we have to ensure that when we prepare them for the interview tasks, they are able to go in, perform, and then for the first 3 months, we help them out to ensuring they are fully secure, so on and so forth. So this says we have recently been audited on our OT security controls. So this is a big electrical power grid, as I mentioned. The audit has identified multiple weaknesses in the implementation and operation of these controls. So every business in UK has to go through GRC, governance, risk, and compliance. This person, David, he has no experience in basically in computer science. All of his experience has been in finance. But when he joined us, he started working as a cloud engineer with us, right? Going through our internship program. And now he's going for the final round of this interview. What made him qualify to go for the final round? I already showed you the course, DevOps, SysOps, AI. Embed that in your basically in your education, and you'll be able to secure the job. Otherwise, if you don't, then you will be going back. Even if you have the PSW, you will be going back after some time. Once your PSW expires, you'll be going back. Okay, so it says the control audit covers boundary defenses, DMZs and firewalls, right? The outsider edge, the secure configuration, access control, and malware controls. The framework used by the audit has not been adopted by XXX, so some variation within our risk appetite may be acceptable. So they're saying this is another thing where they're mentioning that there has been a framework, but it hasn't been adopted by the organization, right? It says the controls are implemented by various engineering departments across the group in line with policy and standards set by the group security. So the group security department is there, and they started implementing, various engineering departments started implementing some of these controls. The findings cover many areas, and the recommendations are broad, and in some cases over and above our corporate risk appetite. They're saying some of these controls, some of these findings are so broad and so I would say like high level, like they have a high priority, that they are beyond the corporate risk appetite. Corporate risk appetite means what is the appetite of how much risk I can tolerate, the organization. For example, if I'm driving, if someone hit me on the side, it's a dent, it's acceptable. The car is still acceptable. That's my risk appetite. If someone, bumped me on the other side, it's a scratch, it's okay. But if someone's hit me, T-bone me from the side, and my airbags deployed, they get deployed, then basically the risk appetite is complete, it's above and beyond the risk appetite. So I cannot drive that car anymore on the road. The car is total. So the organizations, when they are running their businesses, they have to set up boundaries of how much risk they can tolerate, because after that toleration level, the risk becomes so high that the cost of managing that risk becomes unbearable for the business. So they have to figure out how to minimize the risk, because the risk can only be managed, remediated, addressed, or they can be transferred, or they can be accepted, but they cannot be ignored. They cannot be eliminated. So there is always a risk, but you can't ignore it, you can't eliminate it. Either you accept it, you say, yes, we accept that this is what's going to be. Group security are responsible for ensuring a plan is put in place to remediate the findings, monitor the progress of the plan, and quality assurance assure the outcome. To ensure the actions carried out are compliant to XXX policies and standards. Progress on remediation of the findings must be reported to audit committee on a quarterly basis and XCOM monthly, right? So that's the process that they have. In every organization, there's an audit committee, and they are responsible for internal audits and external audits, right? And if you find anything, you have to go and report back to them, and on a quarterly basis, give them an update. This is where it is standing. We are trying our best to remediate all of these things. It is expected that all findings are to be resolved within a year. Normally, that's the time frame. When you find something, the auditor gives you, okay, how much time do you need? Some of the low-hanging fruits, you can address them immediately. Some of the high ones, you can't. So what do you say? You say, well, it's going to take us at least 1 year to close the findings, because some of these findings may require more work, more investment, more this or that. So it all depends on what you are managing. Now, you must be wondering, none of the universities were able to prepare me for this. This is the difference between us and the universities, right? And that's what we do. Okay. Now, it says, prepare a presentation on how you would approach developing, managing, and reporting on a comprehensive remediation plan. So they're saying, give us your plan. Your plan. What is your plan of how you will, manage and report a comprehensive remediation plan? So, you need to close all of these items. What items? These are the items. So you need to close 5 findings rated as high. That's a big problem. 12 amber, medium, and 22 green. They're acceptable. Okay, we will try our best, depending on how much money we have to spend, how much resources we have to spend, all of these things, right? All of these things, they matter. And then they say scenario, and then they have given you a scenario. There is currently a risk raised relating to the applicability of the Information Security Management System, ISMS, to operational technology environments, meaning there is a lack of clear and concise guidance, control assurance, and monitoring. Describe your approach for developing a remediation plan that will allow the risk to be closed out. Now, risk to be addressed. This closeout doesn't mean that everything is done. No, you have to close the findings. You have to close the gaps. And then they've given us this remediation plan. I'm not going to share the remediation plan with you because it contains some of the data given by the client to David because it's proprietary information. So they haven't mentioned anything big. They've just mentioned these are the findings. Tell us what needs to be done, etc., etc. So I'm going to read this as well, David, just to make sure that I understand. So give me 1 minute until I review this thing, okay? So it says their external auditor reviewed the NCSC during CRR, right? Whilst the security standard within the ISMS defined minimum security controls for IT systems, there's a significant lack of clear and concise guidance for operational technology. What they're saying is that there's a significant lack because what is happening is someone is trying to apply IT controls over OT controls. IT is separate, OT is separate. They're both very, very different beasts, right? So you cannot have one size fits all policy for everything. Now, David, whatever I'm explaining, these are the notes. So when they ask you the questions, you need to be prepared, right? So that's one thing you have to be prepared. You have to be fully prepared with. I'm going to open this thing just to mention. And I'm going to share my screen quickly. So the first thing you have to do, right? Let me know if you can share, if you can see my screen. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to share the screen. Trying to see if I can share the screen or not. Okay. Now it is showing, right? Okay. So the first thing you have to do is, this is an interview preparation for David, right? The company is a SCADA company, right? And they have mentioned, what do we have to do? So you will mention the first thing, which is the introduction, right? So the first slide is going to be the intro. And this is where you will mention name of the company, right? Company name, company details, and you will mention the scope of this meeting. Scope of this meeting, right? So this is the scope of the presentation. So your first slide is going to be scope of this presentation, right? Immediately after the intro. The intro is where you will mention the name of the company, and also you will mention the attendees, right? Who is attending, the attendees, the task given, what is the task given, so that everyone is clear about the task. The task is that we have to evaluate the audit report, right? That is the task. And then the second is going to be the scope of this presentation. So you're going to mention the scope. The scope is the report, the report from the external auditor. I'm not going to name the name of the external auditor. You can say KPMG, right? KPMG is the external auditor who did the report, and they found out like what are the findings. The findings are pretty simple. These are the findings. Then you'll mention the findings. So the findings are, there are 5 red, right? So 5 highs. And then there are 12 amber, right? Right? Medium, which is the medium ones. And then there are 22 low findings, right? And then you will mention here at the bottom, there will be a asterisk, right? And you'll mention high, medium, low. What does it mean, right? At a high level, significant risk. High means significant risk. Medium means moderate risk, right? And low means very low risk, right? Very low or insignificant, right? Accepted or tolerated, right? For a certain time period, right? Because here, the scope of the meeting, you will mention the name of the external auditor and some of the inherent limitations. Inherent limitations. You will mention the inherent limitations. Now, David, you have to create this presentation. Whatever I'm explaining it to you, you have to do this with your own hands so that when you come to me tomorrow, you're going to show it to me and I'm going to see it. And on Monday, we're going to do the rollback again. And I'm going to basically become the CISO of the company who will be sitting in that meeting, right? Just like you will be seeing that person. And I'll be asking you these same questions. How do we do this? How do we do that? What does this mean? What does that mean? So you have to explain this to me. Am I clear, David?
Yes, Faisal bhai.
This is how we have to do this thing. That is how we have been teaching you, right? And that is why you are in the final phase of the interview. So if you do this with me, you can pass the interview very easily. The most important aspect. So this is very important, okay? Now, you will mention inherent limitations are, then you will mention is don't have access to basically ISMS policies. No access.
Faisal bhai, sorry to interrupt, but the thing is that for the PPT, they haven't mentioned any inherent risks.
Listen, what I'm telling you, just follow it.
Okay.
What this means, inherent limitations, is you don't have access to anything, but you are hypothesizing everything. Do you know their risk appetite? When they say that as per a corporate risk appetite, you don't know what is the corporate risk appetite. So you have to mention the inherent limitations. Tell them whatever you are going to tell them during this presentation is based on minimum information that they have given it to you. Yes, you have passed your first interview round, but what this means is that you don't have access to some of these things, so you are hypothesizing right now. It's all hypothetical, right? You don't know all of these things. So this is where you are basically safeguarding yourself. Whatever I'm explaining it to here right now is based on your own experience working at our company, right? Because you don't have access to this. So you will mention, you don't have access to ISMS policies. You don't have access to risk management policies. You don't have access to regulatory policies. All of these things. You don't know anything. You don't know anything, but you're still coming up with these things, right? So then you will jump on. So this is the first slide, the intro. You will mention the name, Jan, David, all of these guys, your name, you're coming in here as well. And assume that you are one of the risk specialists over there as well. That's your title, right? IT and OT risk specialist, right? Right. So mention that. Then you will mention scope of this presentation. It's all regarding the KPMG audit report. Then you will mention inherent limitations. There are inherent limitations, some of the very important limitations. Whatever you are saying is based on minimum information that they have given it to you, which is very, very minimum, just an appendix and this. So tell them that, whatever you say should be taken with a grain of salt right now. Then you will mention the findings. What are the findings? The 5 highs, the 12 mediums, and 22 lows. And then you will mention, this is where you are hypothesizing the information. High means severe, medium means, moderate risk, severe risk is high, medium means moderate, and low means acceptable, tolerated, as per the risk appetite. The next thing is the group is responsible for ensuring a plan, and then they go in and then they say, prepare a presentation. This is the task as per the scenario. So you have to create, developing, managing, and reporting on a comprehensive remediation. Now you will say, this is my remediation plan, right? This is my remediation plan. Now you will mention the remediation plan, and the remediation plan is this one. This is the remediation plan, right? And the remediation plan is where you will mention all the key findings now. So it says there's this, they have mentioned some of these things, that the IT and the OT environments, meaning there's a significant lack of clear and concise guidance, right? And you will mention some other things as well. So now I will go back to the basically to the main finding report, so that I can open that. Just give me 1 minute. I'm going to open this in front of me right now. Now it mentions here the operational security standard, which sits below the operational technology policy, references standards that sits below the IT security policy, and the content is not always applicable to OT. So what they're saying is that where OT is mentioned, the content lacks consistency and can be ambiguous, right? That's what they've mentioned. Consequences, they've mentioned the cause. The cause is because of all of these findings. And by the way, if I look at the report, they haven't mentioned the risks, right? They haven't mentioned any of the things, right? I mean, what is the risk? DMZ, access control, this and this and this. They haven't mentioned any of those things. Can you see them in there in the report, David?
No, Faisal bhai, actually the thing is that there are two tasks. In the first one, for the PPT, they haven't mentioned any details of the risk. They have just mentioned there is an audit report regarding that. We have to, as you said, that we have to assume that what would be in the audit details, like in the report. For the second part, they have mentioned some sort of controls. They have given the risk description, that there is no proper ISMS for an OT sector, and they have mentioned that some of the controls they have tried to apply, and they have tried to put some of the controls on OT, but there is no proper framework. So there is a findings, like there is a risk still there, and the target risk is to reduce that risk, and we have to close that finding actually.
I'm going to go through them one by one anyway. That's not a problem. What we are trying to establish here is just like you need to understand all the key aspects, so that when we go in, we understand all the key avenues that we have to look into, right? Okay. So just give me 1 minute. What happened? Okay. It says controls implemented may not be sufficiently robust, increasing our security risks. As the minimum security controls for the OT systems are not clearly defined, new systems may be delivered with deficiencies in their design and with inconsistent implementation, resulting in increasing cost and delay due to retrospective remediation requirements. There may also be increased ongoing maintenance costs due to a lack of standardization of software tools and technologies. This may in turn increase training and spare costs and hinder staff mobility and obsolescence management planning, right? Then they have mentioned, this was the risk description, because they always give you a risk description and description of the control. They haven't mentioned any of the controls here in the report. Then they have shown inherent impact rating, which is, whatever it is, medium or high or whatever. Inherent probability. What is the probability of almost certain that this will happen? Inherent risk profile, it's very high. Likelihood with an effective governance framework through an embedded ISMS, the likelihood of inconsistent implementation of security controls is possible. The implementation of the embedded OT ISMS and appropriate governance would likely reduce the occurrence. Without the minimum security controls for OT systems being clearly defined, there is the potential for new systems to be delivered with deficiencies. This is the same thing that they have mentioned over there. Existing controls, they have mentioned, whilst the formal governance framework around OT security requires improvement, engineering teams are aware of and are working towards strengthening OT security controls in line with the requirements of the NIS regulation, right? What does the NIS regulation ask for? Whatever the regulations are, whatever they're asking for, right? This is the NIS UK, right? Is that correct?
Yes, Faisal bhai. That's NIS UK. Yes.
Just give me 1 minute. Let me open that right now in front of me so that I can review that as well. So just trying to get this right now. National NIS. Just give me 1 minute, please. Okay, so the NIS is basically in the context of UK cyber. This is the NIS directive, which is the directive for the cybersecurity in UK, improve national cybersecurity capabilities, includes EU level cooperation, incident management, stuff like that, right? Okay, then they have mentioned some of this, and then they go into risk rating, impossible, possible, all of those things, right? They have also mentioned some of the things in here that the control findings were regarding some of the key aspects. So we're going to go into that. And the scope basically was, as they have mentioned here, I'm going to open that. The control audits cover boundary defenses, DMZs, firewall, secure configuration, access control, and malware controls, right? That was the audit, the scope of the audit. So the next slide you will mention, before this remediation slide, right? You will mention the scope of the presentation, external audit report, findings, and then you will mention the, whatever the findings are. So you'll mention findings, part 1, right? And then you will mention some of the key findings. And now they're asking you for the approach, managing and reporting on a comprehensive plan. How would you do this thing? So you will say, this is my approach, approach to address the findings, right? This is the approach. The approach is going to be, it all comes down to 3 things: people, processes, and technology. So now you will mention that each of the findings needs to be connected, and this is where you will mention the findings, right? The findings, the audit findings. Each of the findings needs to be connected with the owner of that finding. People, you need to identify the people. You will say, I need to identify the people who owns those, 5 highs and 12 mediums and 22 lows. I need to meet them, greet them, give them these findings, tell them this is the finding of the KPMG audit report, and we need to figure out the best possible way to address these things. What is your timeline? And the next question, before I even go for the timeline, I will ask them, what is the process that you follow, right, that resulted in this finding not being compliant? Because in the audit report, you will mention that, since you only have a snapshot of the audit report, that's why you have to ask this question. For example, if the finding is related to DMZs, right? Okay, where is the network diagram? Can you show me, what are the boundary defenses do we have on the DMZ? What do we have? For the web servers, do we have any web application firewall, stuff like that? But that's IT stuff. What happens to the OT stuff? Because the findings are specifically targeting the OT stuff. So for the operational technology, why are these systems allowed to be on the internet in the first place? What is the business justification for that? What are the processes that you have right now that you follow? And does those policies and procedures, do they comply with our ISMS or not? Right? So that's what you will mention. Though you will say that, though in the end, I will show you, rather than having an ISMS policy, or whatever we are doing, the group cybersecurity policy, we should have a framework. And I'm going to propose a framework at the very end. I'm going to show it to you how we can ensure that all of these findings, there's complete harmony and there's complete unification, and where we have a unified view of the risks as it relates to IT and OT. And I will mention that at the very end. This is how you have to copy each and every word of mine. David, if you copy each and every word of mine, forget ChatGPT on all of those things. They're not going to tell you how to pass this interview, right? They will just provide you bookish knowledge. This interview needs to be tackled with respect to experience. So we'll say people. So then we'll come back and say, people are the most important link. So I need to identify the people who owns that, risk. The 5 highs, the 12 mediums, and 22 lows, I need to identify them. Processes, I need to understand the processes that they have. Technology components, what kind of technology components are we using? Whatever we have. There are so many controls that we have to comply with, Are we looking into some of the key standards or not? I mean, these are the things that I need to know. Whatever OT components we have, distributed control systems, HMI, PLC, all of, historian, all of these things, the sys control systems, all of these things, right? What do we have? What do we have to do to protect those things? What kind of technological controls do we have, right? So that is what you have to say, because you need to know how those systems are being managed. Now, one of the main thing is basically these OT systems, they're very task-oriented, right? So you need to, and these are mostly physical devices and processes. Okay? This is very important, David. So you need to find out what are the best things that needs to be tackled first. Okay, so people, processes, and technologies. The next thing is going to be give me 1 minute. Let me review the report, because I'm making this right now as we are reviewing, right? Then you will mention, I need to dig in deeper and understand what are the key components of which are of the OT which are impacted, or the processes which are impacted as high level findings, right? The 5 highs. What are those? Are those HMIs? Are those PLCs? Are those our internal sensors? What are the issues that we have to face, that we have to address? Again, you will keep on mentioning, because I don't have access to much of the report. The report only gives me a snapshot. That's why I have to provide my presentation in a very hypothetical fashion. You will mention, it is mentioned here, the DMZ, the secure configuration, the access control, the malware controls. So I will only focus on these 4 areas, right? So you will mention, as the report suggests, I need to identify the people and connect them to the findings, right? I need to identify all the findings, the 12 highs, the 5 highs, the 12 lows, mediums, and the 22 lows, right? So just call them HML. So it's, so we need to find out what those are. Then I need to look into the processes, what are the processes that connects to these findings, the 5 highs, the 12 mediums, and the 22 lows. What can I do? What can we do to protect these things? For example, it is mentioned here, secure configuration, right? So it is mentioned here, secure config, right? Or DMZ controls, or it mentioned here, access control, right? And it mentions here malware controls, right? So I need to understand, why are these OT systems accessible from the internet in the first place? Why? Or how can we protect these things by creating some kind of jump box servers? Because you will mention again, you cannot see in the report what are the 12.5, what are the 5 highs, the 12 mediums, and the 22 lows. You don't have access to that. So you are just right now at this stage hypothesizing and connecting every information with respect to the 4 areas which covered the audit. The controls audit cover boundaries and stuff like that, right? So you'll mention that. But then you will also say secure configurations. What are the controls that we're utilizing to check the configuration? Why are we not ensuring that they are, inherently secure? Are we using CIS guidelines? Are we using the best practices and guidelines from these OT providers, the operational technologies coming from Siemens, Rockwell, or any of these providers? I mean, who are the main providers, right? Hitachi, or, all of these top providers that we mentioned last time, right? In your first presentation, you will go through all of them. Then you will say access control. Again, you will keep on mentioning, I don't have access to the full report, so I'm hypothesizing, this is all hypothetical. And you will mention that access control, what kind of access control are we given? Is it discretionary access control, mandatory access control, role-based access control? Do we have a segmentation of roles and responsibilities? Do we have job, rotations in place? All of these things needs to be taken into account. And I need to sit down with the people to discuss the processes so that I can tell them how we can potentially close the gap. That's my job, right? My job is go there as Moses, as a messenger, right? So I go in there and say, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just here, build up relationships. I'm here to help you so that you can help me close down these findings. The last one is malware control. This is the most important one, tell them, because most of these OT devices are not patched regularly. It's not easy to patch these things. There's a lot of responsibility, right? They're not designed with security built into the system. They are designed with operational efficiency, aspect. They're not designed with security built into the system, into the fabric of OT. That's the problem. And there will always be a problem, which is fine. So we know our business. Now, then you're going to mention, after mentioning this, then you will have another slide. Keep it short and keep it fast, right? But have a flow. Then you'll mention, controls needs to be designed. So mention that one size fits all, right? That doesn't work. One size fits all. That doesn't work. So you will say one size fits all. What does this mean? What this means is just like whatever controls we have for IT and OT, we can't deploy the same controls that we have for IT versus, on the same one to OT. They're both different. It's like you have 2 kids. One wants to drive a Maserati. The other one wants to drive Aston Martin, right? They're both different kids. You can't just say, you know what, guys, you both are going to drive Honda or Range Rover or whatever like car they want to prefer, right? Obviously, the analogy is very tough because I'm using expensive cars versus, cheaper cars. But I'm just basically explaining it to you that the problem we have is just like, I have limited information, but I have this finding mentioned in there that most of these controls, of design in the ISMS, are in line with our IT. So IT and OT are both separate. So you will mention here, right? So they're both separate, IT versus OT. They're both separate. So one size fits all doesn't work on these things. They don't. We need to treat them separately, right? And that is the technology part. So I will start with the people, go to the processes, understand the processes, explain to them, etc., evaluate with them, sit with them, how long it will take, what it will take them, what resources do they need, etc., gather all that information and document that, and then basically assist them as much as I can to close these items. If we need segmentation, I will recommend them segmentation. I will recommend them jump box controls, like so that we can, if these systems need access to the internet, we put on IDS, IPS and stuff like that, so that remote, engineers can log onto the system and access those things. But they won't be able to access it from any system. No, they have to jump into another one system, which is a jump box. So you will mention like it's a jump box control, just to give you an example right now, where you have to mention that, jump box control, right? And just mention, this is another slide, just mention them another slide, jump box controls. What this means is just like engineers are coming in, right? And they're trying to access the OT layer. This is the IT and this is the OT. This is the IT and OT. OT is always at the low level, but they have to come in and they have to access one of the system. And from here, they can access all the things. Not like this, where, all of these systems, IT and OT, and all of these systems can be accessed from outside, right? So the engineer can access them from here. No, not directly. They have to go through a jump box. So we need to, this is just an example. This is just an example. I need to cordon the network as per the IEC 62443. Something I was not able to see, right? The IEC 62443, which is the gold standard when it comes to managing IT and OT networks, right? And this is where you can show them, the most important thing, which is basically, and let me show it to you. This is one of the things that you can show it to them. And this is where you have to show them the IEC 62443 network, right? So show them any network picture you want to show them, right? This is an industrial control system. You can show them from Cisco or whatever you want to do. You can just mention that this is our control and this is where they have to go in, the enterprise network, the industrial DMZ that we have, and then the industrial network 1, industrial network 2, all of these things. We have to make sure that there are conduits and zones defined where if anyone wants to come in, they have to come in from that thing rather than these systems accessible from the internet, as I showed it to you, right? So show them this diagram, right? This is just an example, just a depiction. Because again, mention them, I don't know, I don't have access to what are the 5 highs, the 5 highs, the 12 mediums, and the 22 lows. I don't know. They might exist here, they might exist here, they might exist here, they might exist all over the place. But what I do know is mention that the whole audit covers, DMZ, secure configuration, access control, and malware controls. Now, malware controls is very important, right? So we need to make sure that we have all appropriate malware controls and we are performing penetration testing, network testing, vulnerability scanning, network mapping on a continuous basis or after every major change, depending on what activity is being done at what, as per the policies that we have, as per our risk appetite, as per our risk management policies and procedures to ensure that we keep on minimizing the risk to an acceptable level, to a tolerable level, right? And that's where you will show them the diagram that I showed it to you, that you will say, this is the diagram that I will show to ensure that, everything is protected, right? Then the next thing is going to be, so you will show them the diagram, the IEC 62443, Cisco diagram. Just tell them this is an example. This is just an example that I'm showing it to you. Again, I don't have access to the policies, the procedures, the network controls, the network diagrams. I have nothing. So I'm just giving at this stage a hypothetical situation, right? Now, this is my approach of how I will, go about in terms of addressing all of these findings. And obviously, this needs to be done in line with our corporate risk appetite and the urgency. And that is exactly how we'll communicate with the audit committee on a quarterly basis that, then you will say audit committee reporting, right? Audit committee reporting. So Q1, first after meeting with all of these guys, I will provide them a plan. Plan is there, plan of action, right? So this is the plan of action that we're going to tackle. And then in Q1, this was the upgrade. Q2, this was the update. Q3, this was the upgrade. Q4, you'll try to make sure that all of these findings are done. So some of the highs, or the lows, we will divide them that by this time, the five highs would have been addressed, because Q1 always takes time. It always takes time. Some of these findings may be quick to patch in. If you don't have a control or a process, we can develop that. We can throw in compensating control in there. We can do all of those things. But when it comes to the 12 mediums and the 22 lows, we take our time and we divide this and we keep on addressing the issue. This job, David, is going to pay you £50,000 per annum. So you need to prepare this presentation for me. And I'm going to ask you all of these questions. So you better be prepared to meet me on Monday or Tuesday, right? So do your preparation. This is how you have to present. Forget about everything what ChatGPT told you, because it's all bookish knowledge. It can assist you in some of the aspects, but it can't teach you how to ace the interview. No, right? This is the difference between human and machine, right? Now, as I said, this is your finding. Now, there is another thing which is mentioned here. And now you will say, my words of advice, my words of wisdom, right? Words of advice. Or you can say, my 12 cents, my 12 cents or 22 cents or whatever, right? So, or my 10 cents or whatever you want to do, just have this, my words of advice or my recommendations or whatever you want to come up with. You will say that, we really need to understand the key aspects of how we are dealing with these things. Because one of the things mentioned in the audit report was basically, which is mentioned here, is that the information security management system is an IT policy and standard set, which are previously reviewed by KPMG, and the security standard with the IMS define minimum controls clearly for IT systems. There is a significant lack of clear and concise guidance for operational technology. So tell them the biggest finding I have here, which is also mentioned in the audit report, is that the standard we have is designed for IT, is not designed for OT. For the OT, we need to use IEC 62443. IEC 62443 is designed for OT. It is specifically designed for OT, right? It is for IT and OT both, right? So mention that it's all fun and games. It's really nice that we have all of these controls in there, right? But when it comes to all of these things, we really need to make sure that we have proper controls in place and we have proper boundaries defined, right? And that's where you will mention this diagram to them. I'm going to show it to you. And this is the final diagram that you will show it to them and say that the second last sheet, right? Where you're going to mention all the key findings. I'm going to show it to you. Hold on. So this is the final, basically, control that you're going to show it to them. Say that we really need to have something like this, where we defined our industrial zones, OT separately, our IT separately, and the DMZ is sitting in between. And for this, I'm proposing, and this is where you would show this diagram, and then you will say, and for this, I'm proposing, right, this. This is the Unified Risk Management Standard, right? This is where you're going to mention this. And you will mention that Unified Risk and Compliance Framework. Or you can say Unified Governance, Risk, and Compliance Framework. Why is it not sharing that? This happens like that. Can you see my screen? You can, right? So you mentioned Unified Risk and Compliance Framework, which is the UGRCF. What does UGRCF really means? And then you will show them. This is the UGRC framework. The UGRCF, the Unified Governance, Risk and Compliance Framework. Okay. It will cover our IT and our OT with controls. So IT is here, OT is here, right? It will cover for IT aspects, it will cover the ISMS. For the OT aspects, we will look into basically the IEC 62443 standards. The NIS standards, will be applicable to all of them anyway, right? The NIS directives and whatnot. The IEC 27019, the IEC 27017, 27018 for cloud security and cloud privacy. For any moment in time, if you want to go something like that, ITIL controls will always be there anyway, for the ISO 20000, right? So this is a unified control framework, a unified governance, risk, and compliance framework, where we have controls, but those controls are designed to match our business requirements. And remember, as I mentioned, one size fits all. It doesn't work out, one size fits all. And that's exactly what I'm mentioning, right? That we need to have a unified governance, risk, and compliance framework where we treat each and every standard, each and every business application or processes or technology components in a very, very different manner as per the risk appetite. And again, the risk management is already covered. The whole of the thing will be covered by the risk management part, right? The risk management part. So you have to develop this diagram, because this diagram is the final push that you have to do, David, to ensure that you secure the job. Because this is the final stone, this is the final brick to complete the foundation of your interview. But you have to do all of this thing very, very fast. So go back, develop this thing, come back to me and say, I'm ready, we can go live for this, etc. And I've understood all of these requirements. And now I would like to, when I go in for this interview, I want to make sure that I pass this interview. And this is the final round because I don't want to miss anything. David, do you have any questions? Go ahead, David. Do you have any questions?
Okay, Faisal bhai, this was all about the first task. So how would I approach the second one then? Because I think so. There are two approaches that I have to give to them.
What two approaches? What is the second task? I am only able to see there is a scenario and task one, and that's it. There's nothing else in the document.
But Faisal bhai, they are asking about the another approach. Like in a scenario, they are saying describe your approach for developing a remediation plan that would allow the risk to be closed out. that's mentioned in Appendix 1.
We're talking about all of those things. That's exactly what we were talking about. Go back and watch this interview carefully. Okay? Of all the things that we've been discussing about all of the same things. Just give me one. So we have been discussing the whole approach so far. We went through all the slides. We discussed the introduction, the scope of the presentation. External audit report is the scope, the controls, the findings, and what approach to address the findings. What does approach to address the finding means? It means that how you are going to ensure that the 5 highs, the 12 lows, 12 mediums, and 22 lows are addressed. And then I went in through all the examples. You will connect those findings with respect to the people. You will then try to find out the processes, and then you will try to find out if this finding is a technology component or a process component, how it can be closed. That's exactly what we were going through. What are you talking about? This is the plan. There's nothing else. That's what you have to do. And that's exactly what the GRC consultants does. That's what they do. Okay, so go back and create these basically presentation slides. You have to be fast, you have to be efficient, and you have to be effective. So I started this presentation at 140 something, and it's 2:52. So you need to make sure that you are able to close this whole presentation in tops 35 to 40 minutes, along with your final finding. And then say, in the last presentation, you will say, thank you for your time. This is an open house for Q&A. If you have any questions, please ask me. That will be your last slide. After showing the Unified Governance System Compliance Framework, the UGRCF, then you will say, okay, that's my view. Obviously, it requires lots of times. We have to negotiate. There will be, in every organization, there are hawkish people. There are conservatives. There are liberals. There's Labor Party in here. It's a mixed bunch, and that's what makes the company strong, right? So my job is to make sure that I listen to everyone, and I listen to my superiors, and I try to design a solution that addresses the issue. And that is what you have to do, David. Do you understand?
Yes, Faisal bhai. And Faisal bhai, one more question. What entails the assessment report? Because I think what I know that if they have provided any kind of findings, they must have given some sort of recommendations as well. So would I need to go through that?
In the audit report, they give you the audit report is like 70, 80, 100 pages long, right? They have only given you one finding and saying like this is the crux of the finding. But they have mentioned 4 areas where the audit was concerned. The audit was covering the report of DMZ, secure configuration, access control, malware controls. That was the scope of the audit. And that's what the KPMG auditor did. But what they found out was just like, you guys, the company has been deploying ISMS controls that are designed for IT over OT, which is not the case, right? So you have to mention, that's not ISMS is designed for IT, not for OT. For OT is 27019. So you have to mention ISO 27019. Right? So that's how you have to mention. But normally the audit reports is a huge document. They haven't given you anything. And that's what they're expecting it from you. How would you go about? So what I explained to you is the whole approach of managing and reporting, a comprehensive plan, remediation plan. That is your plan. That is your plan. There's nothing else.
Okay. And Faisal bhai, one more thing. IC 62443 mentions Annexure A regarding preparing the CSMS framework, like OT governance framework. So do I need to mention that what are the elements of those like OT governance framework? And
you should know about them. You should know about them because the time is only 1 hour. and you have to do a quick presentation, right? So you'll be running out of time very fast, right? For the issue specific, the 27019 2017 standard is designed for OT in the energy utility industry, right? This comes in the energy utility industry, right?
Okay.
Right?
Yes, Hasan.
So ISO 27019 is designed for OT controls in energy and utility industry. So you mentioned, if given the opportunity, I will look into implementing IC 62443 and infusing that with 27019. And as I mentioned in the last slide, right? The last slide already covers everything. If you pay attention and if you look into here, it covers each and every aspect completely, right? So it mentions here, the last slide, which says 27019 for energy utility, for cloud security, cloud privacy, if you have something like that, 62443, ISMS is here, which is the ISO 27017, 001, right? Two, all of these controls are here. And that's what makes the unified compliance framework, because there is, ITIL in there as well for ISO 20000. You can also mention TOGAF is here for architecture and whatnot. I mean, again, you will mention, again, I don't know anything about the organization, what your, organization does, because I was given very minimal information. So I'm hypothesizing right now, TOGAF or Zachman, might be there, or whatever, framework you follow, or Sherwood framework, or whatever you follow for enterprise architecture. But that is because, we have to ensure that the GRC is embedded within the fabric of the organization like this. The security, the GRC, it's all part of the fabric, right? It's all part of the fabric. And that's what makes us stronger, And again, you mentioned, to pull something like this off, it takes time. It takes 1 year to 1.5 years, because it's a slow process. You build up alliances, everyone has their own kingdom and they want to defend their kingdom, right? And what I have to do, what we have to do, just say what we, don't say I, just say what we have to do as the GRC department and OT is highlight the plight of OT systems to IT guys and say, guys, you can't use IT controls to secure OT. IT is separate, OT is separate. They're both should be dealt separately. Their compliance is separate. Their risk is separate. Their controls are separate. Every single thing is separate, right? Yes, there are some synergies. We can borrow some of the controls sometimes, yes, but but they need to be designed in a different manner, right? And that is my job. That is our job to get it done, right? It takes time, but obviously we should, we will be able to do that. Now, keep this in mind, this is not a day task or a month task, or, it can go to a year to 1.5 years to 2 years, depending if you want to have a completely secure network. Again, the stakes are high. UK essentially is landlocked right now. They have locked their horns with Russia right now, and we are providing them, tanks and whatnot. Things are getting messy. Our grids are exposed, right? This company is going to be on the hit list of Russian espionage, and they can cripple our systems. They can, attack our through ransomware and cryptoware and all these kinds of things. So some of the controls we may have to go in and quickly get them done, roll up our sleeves, and just go in there and get it done. And some of the things we will have time to, address these findings over a course of time. But it all depends, right? So mention to them, as from my experience, what I've seen is that it all depends on the risk appetite and the urgency. The threats are evolving. Advanced persistent threats are increasing. There's a lot of things happening in the world. We have to make sure that we develop controls in a much more secure and robust manner. So this is they will be paying you £50,000. £50,000 means like $100,000 roughly, right? So they're going to push you, and you have to push yourself. Okay, David. So that's your interview prep. This is now done. Do you have any further questions before I jump to Sajjad?
Not at the moment.
Okay, so you can, thank you for your time, David, but please make the presentation complete and show it to me. Tomorrow morning, when I wake up for Fajr Salah, I should be able to see the presentation in my inbox and a WhatsApp message
Inshallah.
to you saying that this is done. And may Allah help you. I'm sure, inshallah, that you'll be able to secure the job. Once you are able to do that, pass your final interview, then reveal your name and everything, and then you can go in and tell everyone, how you were able to secure the job. Again, all the PSW people who are sitting here, do you have any words to say and tell them? David, do you have anything to tell them? Go ahead, this is your time.
First of all, not that much, that just keep doing the hard work and keep studying. So yeah, if I can do it, they can do it as well. So it's not that much difficult.
You
Just
came
have to pay it.
from a finance background, right? And you are going in a
I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about cybersecurity. I came to know everything about cybersecurity from Al Nafi platform. So I didn't have any idea.
This is not even a
So
cybersecurity role. This is the GRC role and a SCADA role, OT role, right? So this comes into the SCADA domain that we teach, actually, right?
yes, yes,
But
but it's related to Faisal Bhai, it's anyways it's cybersecurity role. So but it pertains to SCADA. You're right. So I have also studied SCADA track separately from your platform, but initially I studied cybersecurity. So that's how I
cybersecurity
built up.
element that is part of each and everything that you do, right? In whatever, if you're an AI or big data or data science or blockchain or any emerging technologies, offensive security is already part of cybersecurity, cloud security, any of those things, they're all connected to each other. And all roads passes through three things, right? DevOps, SysOps, and AI, right? So you need to upgrade yourself with these technologies, otherwise you will be left behind, right? So go and work hard, and inshallah, I would like to hear good news from you, within the coming week that you have been selected. But if you do the preparation well, and if you clear up your, things and you go in completely, with full confidence, then I'm sure that this job is already secured. They want to see how you are going to, pass this thing. That's what they're trying to see. If you can tell them and convince them, then you're already in there, right? These are the things that you haven't learned from the universities. This is something that we teach, right? And that's what secures the positions. So I wish you the best, inshallah. Go and pray and ask Allah, then may Allah help you, okay? Okay, Sajjad, can you come forward, please? So Sajjad's job is very unique. This is Sajjad, are you here? Are you still working at the chicken shop? So Sajjad, I'm not sure like where you are. I think you might be busy or something doing some of the things. But this role that you have sent me, I'm going to cover that quickly. This talks about basically, this is at Sky TV. Sky TV is one of the biggest companies in UK. They have Sky News, Sky Sports. Sky Sports is huge, and they have a huge platform, right? Millions of people, they utilize their content, millions and millions of subscribers, right? This team, this job is, again, Sajjad comes from, he came to UK as a student, he secured his PSW, and now he's going through interviews, right? So it says daily management, administration, and optimization of Jira and Confluence. And that's what you have already learned in DevOps. If you look at the DevOps course, right? If you look at the DevOps, SysOps, and AI, you will see that this is already covered in Diploma in DevOps. So if you go here, and if you go to courses, right? And go to the DevOps, SysOps, AI. either you're studying DevOps or SysOps or AI or all the three of them together, this course is already there. I think it comes here, which is, it's already there somewhere. Let me see. Jira with Confluence. Here it is. Let me see. Python Flask. Let me go back to the courses section and the diploma, which is the EduCall regular diploma in DevOps, right? And it should be here, right? This is here, Jira with Python and Jira with Flask. So this job requires you to basically daily management, administration, and optimization of Jira and Confluence. So they're using everything on Jira. Proactively engage the community of users to generate insight in how teams within Sky across different areas are using Jira with Confluence. This is basically taking out insights. So you have to tell them, you can do this thing by using, different libraries of Python to visualize the data, or you can even do this thing on Grafana and Kibana and some of these solutions, open source solutions, to ensure that the users are able to see how teams within Sky are using Jira and Confluence, or it can be done even through Jira own reporting and analytics tools as well. Work directly with the solution architects to design new solution example, build out integrations and existing Sky systems, amend and develop new workflows, and look at where existing add-ons can be used. Now, this is where you can tell them from application containerization on Dockers, and from Dockers, being running Docker containers running on the Kubernetes. You have done it all. You can certainly do it, and that's your strong suite. Yes, Sajjad, go ahead. You want to say something? Go ahead. You're the co-host now. Go, Sajjad, speak.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम फैसल भाई, मैं ये बताना चाह रहा था, मैं लिसन कर रहा हूँ तो वो अनम्यूट नहीं हो रहा था।
Okay.
और दूसरा मैंने ये देखना था, इसमें एक्सपीरियंस नहीं मेंशन किया उन्होंने कि 2 3 4 कुछ भी, बस उन्होंने ऐसे ही।
It all depends. ये सब चीजें डिपेंड करती हैं. It all depends on how what they're looking for, right? So ये जो job है, this is for a DevOps engineer. So what we have taught you, you already know many things. So tell me, if I look at the DevOps course, what have you finished so far? Docker's deep dive, yes.
Yes.
Bash scripting, yes.
Yes, already does.
Automation deep dive, right?
Yes.
Selenium.
Yes. Jira भी already.
Migrant, right? And then there are open source tools that we haven't mentioned here, but they're part of that. Ansible and Kubernetes Cloud Native, right? So tell them you're already going for the Kubernetes and Cloud Native Associates exam. And then after that, you want to go for the application developer exam, and then the administrator, and then the security specialist, right? Tell them that you are much more excited. If they ask you, explain to us, this is your first interview. If they ask you, explain to us, what do you do in your present role? Did you share with me your resume that I built for you? Did you share that with me?
जी फैसल भाई, मैंने अभी WhatsApp पे भेजा है।
Let me see that.
Oh, जी.
So this resume talks about many things that you have done here, right? It talks about all the key aspects, right? So we will go through all of them one by one, ensuring that this is all covered. Hold on. So with DevOps engineer, and you've mentioned many, many things here, right? In your trainings and everything, as you can see, right? Jira administration, hands-on, good knowledge of APIs, with methods, et cetera, et cetera. They will be asking you, what are you doing? What are you working? So explain to them that you're working with a Canadian company right now, which you are, and your job is basically as a cloud cybersecurity engineer, working in DevSecOps, right? At Anafe, you are managing Docker environments on AWS, EKS, Amazon Kubernetes system, their platform. Some of the work needs to be done on Fargate, so you mentioned that. Administration of AWS VPC and Azure cloud firewalls, in line with customer business requirements, what to enable, what to disable, stuff like that. developing runbooks based on Python and Bash for automating daily tasks. As mentioned here, generate insights, so we can generate insights on a daily basis on real time, in terms of making sure that the people are able to see all the things. Managing infrastructure as a code, basically assets that we have right now within our network. Everything is managed as a code. So given the opportunity, your job would be, work with the solution architects to create IAC infrastructure as a code templates for anything that they design, and their design will be reflected with all the key business requirements embedded within the infrastructure as a code template, right? Implement updates when required. Of course, pushing the updates and upgrades. If these are, tell them that you are well versed in Linux servers. But if it's Windows, yeah, you can work with the people, with the Microsoft administrators to make sure that the updates are pushed through Windows Security Update Service, the WSO server, as we call them, right? Monitor for vulnerabilities and ensure users are notified. This is where you tell them less. I'm well versed in vulnerability scanning, web application, scanning, penetration testing, network pen testing, web application pen testing, performing authenticated scans, unauthenticated scans, all of these things. And tell them that you can even automate these things. I can even automate these things utilizing different controls. And if you guys have any DevSecOps processes, then we can embed those controls within the infrastructure as a code process. So from the CI/CD perspective, continuous integration and continuous deployment, everything, the security will be part of that, journey from end to end. You can help them in terms of lead technical design sessions to derive business requirements and how these can be translated for the Atlassian tools. What I see is that they're using a lot of Atlassian tools. So if you go online on the Atlassian website, right?
ये जिरा के साथ ही उन्होंने बताया था अब्दुल अली ने.
So they're using a lot of Atlassian tools, right? So if you go on Atlassian have a lot of tools that they're using. So it seems like all of their controls are designed with respect to, Jira. So whatever features that they have or products that they have, they must be using at the enterprise level, right? So product is Jira software, service management, Confluence for content collaboration, and Trello for visual project management. So tell them, yes, you're well versed with Jira software. Know the version that you guys are using that he taught you. What was the version that Ali taught you in the course? What was the version?
नहीं specific version नहीं याद, वैसे मैं इसको
Go
revision
and
करूँ.
try to find out. Go and try to find the version. And what is the version which is available right now, right? So Jira software has different versions. So just type in Jira software versions and you will see the versions, right? So all the versions are available here. You'll see the updated version. Is it version 7, 8, 9? Tell them, version 7 to 8. You're well versed with that. 9 just recently came. Many of the organizations are not there yet, right? So they're planning. So yes, mostly it is going to be version 8, 7 and 8, right? That's what you have played with. That's what you have experienced with. Jira Service Management, this is the high velocity ITCM. Explain to them that you understand that, explain to them, I understand the complete ITIL objectives. Change management, problem management, release management, knowledge management, incident management, all of these key controls that needs to be managed within the organization from a DevOps perspective, inside out. Except tell them financial management. That's not my role, right? So I don't know about that. But when it comes to all of these different aspects, I am well versed in all of these things, right? So whether we have to design controls or flows or models or whatever the case is, you can get it done. So mention all of those things, right? There are different products of Jira Workforce Management, and status page, which is like, knowing what is happening. Is there any, in up or down of the services or not? So for the status page, tell them like, we have been using Grafana and Kibana for various customers. in terms of providing them insights, or AWS CloudWatch insights in terms of status, what is happening, right? But if it's a status page as it relates to Jira, yeah, I mean, yes, you can review that, and you can certainly, so go and review all of these solutions, like read about workforce management or the product discovery or the service management aspects or Jira Align and Jira software. Just go in and, Ops Genie, tell them you don't know Ops Genie because we haven't taught you, but tell them similar to this is AWS CloudWatch, AWS OpsWorks, and because both of them, they have canaries, synthetic canaries, all of these different solutions for making sure that incidents, application performance monitoring is done. And for the application performance monitoring aspects, tell them that you are well versed in Elasticsearch platform. So whatever the platforms are, whatever they do, at the end of the day, it's the same aspect. About Bitbucket, GitHub and all those things, mention to them about that. We tell them, did Ali taught you about Bamboo or not?
नहीं फैसल भाई.
Just tell them you are well versed more in the CI/CD aspects from the AWS aspects and Ansible and some of these other solutions, rather than Chef and Puppet and all those other solutions that we have, right? That you have gone through the open source tools, right? The open
Ji,
source,
right.
there's a ton of open source tools available, right? So mention all those open source tools. So mention all of them and say that you have gone through all the open source tools, and that's what you have done. So yes, I don't know about Bamboo from Jira. If he asks you, do you know anything about Bamboo from Jira? Say, no, not Bamboo, but I know about other things that I've been using, right? So and give them the examples of those other things. And those are the tools where you have to mention all the tools that we have taught you, right? And those are basically, let me hide this quickly. And those are, mention to them Git, GitHub, Maven, Jenkins, Chef, Test Sigma, Ansible, Puppet, Gradle, Console, Splunk, Terraform, Nagus, Elk Stack, New Relic, and some of these things, and Sensu. These are all covered, right? So you should be able to tell them what those tools are, what do they do, so on and so forth, right? That's what you have to do. If I look at the job description further, it says identify, isolate, and troubleshoot issues in the deployment code, deployment of code in the dev, test, and production environments, right? So you have to identify and troubleshoot. So tell them, you will utilize all the key tools available at your disposal to identify and isolate and troubleshoot. Depending on what he's going to ask you, this is a very, very Jira Confluence, focus role. Experience as a DevOps engineer within a group technology functions, extensive experience of Jira Confluence, and this is what they're asking for. And just explain to them, you don't have experience with, yes, you do have experience with Jira, right, as an administrator, but you haven't passed the certification for cloud certification or managing Jira projects for cloud certification. Tell them if given 6 months, you can pass them. That's not a problem. Full cycle exposure of understanding of modern technologies, agile, this is all agile. Understanding of enterprise security practices. Tell them you not only understand, you have hands-on experience with that. Cloud platform and services, CI/CD and building pipeline experience. And that's what you have, right? And stakeholder management experience to support the community of users, right? So that's it. That's pretty much it. I mean, I don't see anything here. If you have any questions, ask me. I hope that who's the person who's going to interview you? What's his profile?
जी फैसल भाई मैंने व्हाट्सएप आपको किया है, वो यही है, स्क्रम मास्टर है, और इसकी प्रोफाइल मैंने अभी आपको व्हाट्सएप की है.
Try to talk to me. Yeah, this is very important for you because that will give you the confidence you need. Okay, this is very important for you. Otherwise, you can communicate with me in English effectively. You can help the other person.
Okay. So this person is Scrum Master there, and I send you his profile on WhatsApp in PDF form.
Like Polly, has experience in as a senior manager, responsible for leading up to team, focusing on group-wide DevOps and workflow tools at Sky. All he's doing is basically managing just the Jira tool set. That's it.
Yes.
All what
Yes, master.
Yes, right. So that's his role as a senior manager. There's nothing else I see. Acting agile practice lead, scrum master, ETL, responsible for deriving all of those things.
So he will ask only Jira related question or all over the DevOps tools. What you suggest?
He may ask you some of the things. He used to work at RBS, right, for a long time. Half of 18 years of his life, he has been working at RBS, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Right? So you can see that he has been working as a project manager, as a scrum master for different
Yes.
projects, and as a business analyst as well, as a change analyst as well. So he knows more about ITL and some of these other things. So he'll be asking questions regarding those things.
Okay.
Right? So he doesn't have any qualification. Have no qualification whatsoever. If you look at his qualification, this is all what he has, which is very, very strange.
Yes, this was not mentioned. They're not used to mention.
Right. So if you look at that, says his education is high school and NVQ level 4, which is RQF level 4, and then BCS. That's all he has done. And there is nothing else. All of his life, he's been working in different departments and whatnot, right? So his mostly his questions are going to be related to Jira. So you have to go and jump into the Jira courses. That's why we have covered them in our courses, and you should be fine, inshallah. The remaining thing, this is your first interview. You will know more.
Yes.
If he's the technical guy asking you the question, then he may be the only guy that this means that this may only be one interview only, because the senior manager is interviewing you directly, right?
Yeah.
Most probably this is the one done interview. So I'm not sure what are they offering you. What is the salary package?
It's not mentioned nearly 35 to 55, but it's not mentioned.
He asks you what is your what are you asking for? Tell them somewhere between 45 to 50. What I'm looking.
Okay.
Don't go low. Okay, don't go low, because this job is only putting you is basically it's only focusing on one aspect, which is essentially just the Jira aspect. So you don't want to be rubber stamped as a Jira engineer.
No.
Right? So there's a chance that you might only be rubber stamped as a Jira engineer, right? That's one thing. So don't do that, but let's see. Go with full confidence. You have nothing to lose. Inshallah. May Allah make you. Okay? Do you have any questions?
No, I am on duty, so I have to go.
Sajjad, you have to work on your English. Because one thing that will take you down is your communication skills.
No, I can speak English normally easily.
Remember, there was a guy I used to give example. एक बंदा था हमारे घर में, वो बहुत चौड़ा होके चलता था ना, और हाँ, और जो ना बहुत ज्यादा बदमाश था, सियालकोट का लड़का था, बहुत बदमाश था, ठीक है ना। दूसरे लाहौर के सारे लड़के मेरे अच्छे दोस्त बनते हैं, वो बहुत बदमाश था, ठीक है। तो एक दिन और बहुत पता नहीं इसमें क्यों मगरूर था, इतना क्या था, बाद में बिल्कुल ठीक हो गया, मैं उसका नाम नहीं बताता। एक दिन उसने इंग्लिश में बात की, वो किसी को फोन पे बात कर रहा था, यू कम आई गो बाय बाय। जब उसने बोला ना, मैं सर पकड़ के बैठ गया, मैंने कहा यार ये तुम आए कैसे नहीं, तुम मुझे पहले ही बताओ। तो प्लीज, ठीक है ना, तुम्हारी इंग्लिश नहीं है, बट तुम्हें कॉन्फिडेंस से बात करनी पड़ेगी। दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, बिकॉज तुम्हारे पास कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं होगा ना, ये सारा काम रिमोट है, तुम्हें रिमोट बैठ के काम करना है। दिस इज मोस्ट प्रोबेबली गोइंग टू बी रिमोट जॉब, राइट? बट तुम्हें बहुत
घर के पास या कुछ ज्यादा दूर नहीं है, तो 2 दिन उन्होंने बोला है ऑफिस आना, हाइब्रिड है ना।
हाइब्रिड है, बहुत अच्छी बात है, लेकिन तुम्हें बना के रखनी है। बट यू हैव टू मेक श्योर कि तुम्हारे पास ना अच्छे स्किल्स हों कम्युनिकेशन के, ठीक है। जो इंटर्नशिप का प्रोग्राम है ना, उसके अंदर हम सब चीजें पढ़ा रहे हैं, बता रहे हैं, लेकिन कम्युनिकेशन स्किल्स का हमारा एक अलग से कोर्स शुरू हो गया है जो हमने अभी किया है, ठीक है। तो वो एक अलग से कोर्स है हमारा जो हम लोग अभी करवा रहे हैं। तुम चाहो तो वो हमारा सिद्दीकी साहब के साथ कर सकते हो, लेकिन मेरा मशवरा यही होगा कि तुम अपनी इंग्लिश को अच्छा बेहतर बनाओ, मेमोराइज करो तमाम चीज़ों को, ताकि तुम अच्छी तरीके से बात कर सको, ठीक है।
Alright.
चलो चलो, जज़ाकल्लाह खैर एवरीवन, थैंक यू फॉर योर टाइम। आई विल सी
Thank
यू
you.
in our
Allah
next
Hafiz.
internship class, because all of my classes are now going to be internship classes as well. Okay, jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi